Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm so excited to welcome musician, composer, and singer-songwriter Nick Balaban to the podcast. Welcome, Nick.
Hi.
So I love starting by asking about creative influences in your life. So I'd love to hear from you. What were some of your specific musical influences that helped influence your style?
Um, I've had so many. I don't mean to avoid the question, but I feel like there are influences that I know I've had, which are countless, and then there are influences that I'm not really aware of that are beyond countless.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, um, I really do think that we're all much more influenced than we think we are by everything we that's going on around us. So when we go shopping, like we leave the supermarket with the songs that were playing while we were shopping, and everything that comes with those songs is we take to the parking lot with us. So all right, so that's the long answer. Let's see. Um, I loved. My first records growing up that I loved were Meet the Beatles and the Jackson Five, Looking Through the Windows, the Osmonds, Homecoming. Oh my God! And uh, and I loved a lot of different things about those. And then my parents had a lot of different records, and my mother always had classical radio on. My dad had very eclectic, I would even say weird tastes. He had a Rolf Harris record. I don't know if you've heard of Rolf Harris. He's an Australian. He had a hit here with Tie Me Kangaroo Down Sport. Anyway, he has credited himself with being one of the founders of world music. I mean, there are all kinds of problems with Rolf Harris, the man, but he was incredibly talented, and the music, I love the music, and like the Beatles, he does draw from like all over the world, Brazil and all over folk songs from Aboriginal music in Australia and stuff like that. And the songs are really funny, a lot of them. So I don't know. And then I later loved Jethro Tull and Chicago, and really got into Led Zeppelin and Stevie Wonder heavily. And at the same time, I guess because my dad was a maitre d for a short period at the Village Vanguard, I was exposed to really great jazz music from his record collection and from I don't know. So I got really deeply into Dizzy Gillespie, and then from there, everything McCoy Tyner and what they used to call fusion when I was a kid, which is I don't know, Chick Corea, John McLaughlin, Weather Report, and Jean-Luc Ponty, just a whole bunch of stuff. Some of which is pretty bombastic sounding to me, listening to it retrospectively, but I love this stuff. And prog rock like Genesis and Yes and all that crazy. Gentle Giant was huge with me. I really like a lot of different kinds. And then I love African music, and kind of native music of different places that like field recordings. I don't know. It drives my family crazy. Like we'll be in the car listening to I don't know, the pygmy music uh of this. It'll just be like it will be very raw, and I will be loving it. And my wife might say like, can you put on something else? Do we have to? How about if we just ride in silence for a while?
Oh gosh, that's too funny. It's true though, because we draw inspiration from everything in life. So I love hearing all of these different various artists and everything. So also, so what was like your first instrument, and like was it piano, or like what, like when you first actually started making music?
Yeah, it was piano. We had an old, permanently out of tune piano, and I don't remember when I first started playing around on it. My parents said I used to play with the radio when I was like 2 or something, but I always found myself there, like I don't know, just playing with it, like just trying to figure things out or make things up, or discovering relationships with different notes and intervals. And it was never, I started formal lessons when I was 8, I think. And because I asked for it. There was, I think it was a girl in first grade, Gigi, who played classical piano, and maybe she played as like show and tell for our class. And I said, I want to do that. So I took lessons, but it was kind of rocky. I reading was always very anxiety provoking for me. I don't know why I would need to stop and get it right. I didn't I wasn't able to flow with reading, but I could play things by ear. And I even had a teacher after a couple of years that was so frustrated that he would just tape record himself playing the piece that he wanted me to play and say, see if you can learn this from the tape. And I would do it that way. Yeah, worked.
That's funny because my favorite instrument is also the piano. I started taking lessons when I was 13, but prior to that, I actually played the glockenspiel in elementary school because it's similar, obviously. And
Yeah.
I was the same in that I was not great at sight reading. I used to write in the notes on my sheet music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was, and the classic "every good boy does fine," all those mnemonic
Right.
devices. Um, but I was similar in the sense that I was better at, like, I could listen to stuff and just kind of like try to mimic it. That's interesting how you, obviously then you're just an auditory learner. So that's wonderful
Yeah.
that your teacher figured that out for you too. So when did you get more involved in like actually kind of creating your own sound and like starting a band and all that stuff? I imagine like high school, college, around that time.
Yeah. I think I was in bands starting in middle school. And then in high school, I was in a couple bands, and that was great. That was so much fun. We had the drummer left his drum set in our basement, and I would fool around on those when we weren't rehearsing. And then and the band rehearsals were in my house, in the basement. And in high school, I moved to the basement. There was a separate bathroom there. It was, I don't know why I wanted to live in the basement, but my parents accommodated me, and I put a little bed down there. And it was great. Sometimes I put colored light bulbs in the sockets, and would just imagine like you know that we were like super cool and famous and colored lights somewhere. So yeah.
I love that though, because I mean, like all these rock star legends, you start out like in a basement or a garage. That's amazing. That's too funny. So then, do you remember like your first live performance and what that was like?
Hmm. I don't think I do remember it. I remember like first live performances. Like we played at a nursing home. We played at high schools, and we my dad had a bookstore when I was in college. We played there a bunch of times, and I did piano recitals, but that doesn't really count.
Well,
That was high pressure. Although I did get to play a song or two instrumental songs that I wrote for my piano recital, which was really great. I mean, great that I got to do it. I don't know that the songs were great.
I'm sure they were. That's amazing though. So I'd love to hear like as you advanced your career over the years, I'd love to hear a little bit about like your process. I'm sure obviously it varies project to project, but generally speaking, when you're creating music, do you start from melody? Do you start with lyrics? How does that look for you?
It's really different
Mm.
depending on I, I've I write in all I in fact I try to make sure to write in different ways. So I don't have a single process. But let me see. I mean, when we were writing for a purpose for like a kids show, for instance, for Blues Clues or something like that, we had the concept first. We had, scripts and the general ideas of what the song was supposed to, how it was supposed to function in the story. So, somebody's supposed to be really excited about getting the mail as a regular thing, as an example. So we would kind of talk through the concept of that. And in a way, that was easy because everything sort of fell into place. Like, you want to get somebody moving and it's supposed to be exciting. And you know that it can only be a certain length, it can't be too long. So with all of those limitations, the more limitations you have from the beginning, the easier it is to make the song. On the other hand, like nowadays, like I'm writing all different kinds of things, and sometimes I'll whistle a melody into the phone. If I have this melody stuck in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I wrote that. I don't think I'm. I don't think that's from something. And I might be right. I might be wrong, but I whistle it into my phone, and it lives there for a while, and then I have a whole bunch of files of lyrics, and a lot of them are unfinished. I have different folders. I have barely nothing, a little finished, more finished, and like kind of weird. Those are the lyric folders, and some of the things in barely anything that could be just like a title of a song or a chorus or an idea. And some of the things that are, I might have just a chorus or just a verse idea or something like that. But one time I realized that I had some words that fit a melody that I had whistled into my phone a month earlier. So I just realized they fit together, and it was a coincidence. And I might have mushed them a little bit to fit each other. That became one song. Another thing I whistled into my phone. I read a book by Elvis Costello, like his autobiography, and he wrote briefly about working with Burt Bacharach. And he said that working with Burt Bacharach, you had to, if you were writing words for something that he wrote music to, you couldn't deviate, like not for 1/16th note. Like the words had to fit the melody perfectly. And that was challenging. And I said, oh man, I've never done that. I got to do that. So I had whistled something into the phone, a whole song with the bridge and everything. So anyway, went on from there, the whole thing. And so that's what I had to work with. And I had to make words to that. And I told myself I have to make it exactly to the melody. Oh, well, that was the introduction. Anyway, the melody, I made sure the words went right with the melody, and the whole feel of it to me sounded kind of like a Nino Rota soundtrack, like a Fellini movie, like some I just pictured some kind of surreal Italian movie. And as I started writing words, I don't remember exactly how I did it, but it it turned out to be in the from the perspective of a guy who was obsessed with a Sophia Loren type movie star. And I call it Famous Lady. And, he just sings, she was in that movie, black and white and groovy, and I think that beauty's on the sidewalk over there. And it just goes like that from the whole, all the words just fit the melody. And I would never have come out with words remotely like that, or even a theme, like if I didn't have to stick to the music. So it was a really cool exercise. But probably most times I've fit the music to the words that I have, because when I write words, I have rhythms and, I don't know, song form in mind. Even if I'm not writing to a particular melody, I'm definitely writing to a particular sort of rhythm when I do words. Yeah. And usually I'll write just a few words and then look at the musical possibilities, and then the music and the words start to just feed each other, and I'll just get pushed by either the musical ideas or the words from there.
I love hearing just about, that creative spark and where is it going to lead you and all that. That's really cool hearing about all that. I did want to touch on, obviously you brought it up. I did want to touch on Blue's Clues. I was 5 years old when that show premiered, so that was a big part of my formative years. And I'd love to hear how you became involved on the project, because actually, the reason I found your name and I reached out to you, because Steve Burns, I saw like a panel with him and he brought up how wonderful it was working with you. And I was like, oh, I got to look up Nick Balaban. And yeah.
That's great. He's great. So I got involved basically because I had a girlfriend who was a producer. Not the producer of Blue's Clues. She was a producer of, I don't know, various things. She did these two specials on public television. The first one was called the Red Booth, and the next one was called, I think, The Girls Show. And they were just one. They weren't a series. It was just single shows. And I asked her if she would give me a chance to try and make music for free, just to try and do it, to see what that would be like. And that was good for her. So I did that, and it wasn't I didn't use live musicians or anything like that. It was a very cheap production. As they say, it was in the box. So everything was using sequencers and computer and keyboards and sounds. And that being said, because of they were both for kids, these things, and they had both shows had a very down to earth sensibility. I wanted it to be as organic feeling as possible in a lot of ways. And they were the Red Booth for sure was like very influenced by like Vince Guaraldi, who did the music for the Peanuts stuff. Like it was that kind of those kind of grooves and that kind of feeling. And then a couple of years after those shows, one of the associate producers on those shows was Tracy Johnson, and she called and said, "Hey, I'm doing this show called Blueprints about a cat that's a blue cat, and we're here at Nickelodeon and wondering if you could, send in a demo because I think your music would be really good for that kind of thing." So at that time, I was playing in a band with Mike Rubin, and I knew that Mike had been doing music for commercials and stuff like that, and had his own studio, and that was I didn't have access to anything like that. So we agreed to make a demo from his place if he could, be partners with me on the whole, all the music for Blues Clues. So we did that. We made a demo, and they took it, and we got it. So it was I don't know if is that standard?
Well, yeah, a lot of things it's like it's who you know. So yeah, it's true. But so then you did like basically all like the lyrics and like for all the stuff, or was it just like when you said the male song, I like lit up like just because I was like, oh gosh, that's so funny. I'm telling you, the nostalgia. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to, and I don't have any of those scripts, but I remember the script would say something like Steve sings song excited, celebrating, or excited about the mail, and should be dancy, or he should be dancing around. So yeah, so I know we wanted it to start off slow and speed up and then just end in
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun job. I mean, it's kind of silly when you think about it, like you're like making a million rhymes with mail.
You're right. Mhm.
And what's
That's
fun.
that's the thing because like this stuff obviously for children that then it stays it like becomes like this seminal thing for us and like helps it's yeah it's wonderful. I think it's amazing too you voiced Mr. Salt. That's
Yeah.
amazing. How'd that come about? Like how were they like, hey, you want to try out for this? Like
That was great. I love doing that stuff. That was there was a woman who worked in the office at that time. Well, it was a small operation when it was first starting. We were doing like for the in-house pilot, which was like a pilot just for Nickelodeon to approve of the show going forward, even to try to see if it would work. I was both Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper, and I was doing a kind of a general older kind of Brooklyn accent, like Mrs. Pepper, what are you doing? Like that kind of thing. I'm in the kitchen. What do you think I'm doing? So that's my memory of it. God, I hope I'm not wrong. And then it got approved, and it became time to do the show. And there was a woman that worked in the office at that time, and I got a call and said, "There's this woman who can do a French accent. Can you do a French accent? We'll make you both French." I'm like, "Sure." And then just before we started to do it, I think, or maybe she did a couple, but then she moved. She moved to California. But the characters had already been established, like we were French. So that's how that happened. Yeah.
I love hearing about that stuff. I just distinctly remember as a child when Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper had baby Paprika. That was like the
Oh
cutest
yeah.
thing in the world. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Are you involved at all in the Blues Clues and You revival or no? Like I know it's like a bunch of new projects now with that
Yeah.
franchise.
I wasn't at first. they were mostly, I think they were using almost exclusively Canadian people. I think it was all kind of the same place, like the music, the voices, like everything was. But at some point, oh, they were making the movie, the Blues Clues and You movie, and somebody reached out and asked if I could do that. There was uh, a lot of dialogue with Mr. Salt and Steve together, like being detectives together. That it was great. I was so happy to do that. Um, and then we had such a good time that I think based on what a good time we had, they asked me to do the series from there after that. But then after we did, I think 5 episodes, um, and we started doing a podcast and these different things. Paramount, I believe, pulled the plug on funding new Blues Clues stuff because you know, that's beyond my understanding why things get made or stop being made.
Mhm. That's too bad. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, I don't know. The original show, like, I just love that Steve himself is so, like, such like a kind-hearted, graceful person and like knows how much the show means to kids, like having watched it from the beginning and then with the new generation of kids now. So that's all really wonderful though.
I'm so impressed with Steve. I mean, we knew immediately, Mike and I knew, and I think everybody really knew, like his uh his talent is really like once in a generation, maybe. I To be able to look in the camera and be as communicative and open as he is really amazing. And he's, I think, naturally a very modest person, so I think he was kind of freaked out um by the adulation, by like people saying like, oh, you're so amazing. And I think he thought it came naturally to him, so I don't think he thought of it as like, he may have thought like, I don't understand, like, you know, I'm not doing anything special, when he really was. And yeah, he had a really really rare talent. and and the other guys, Joe and Josh, um were amazing to be able to step in. I mean, like, you know, obviously Steve like created this character and this so much of the aesthetic of or the, not visual aesthetic, but like the value, like the, I don't know, the way that character related to kids, not just in terms of education or entertainment, but in terms of like real empathy and compassion, which is, you know, like Mr. Rogers
Yeah.
used to do. And by the time Donovan Patton came in to do Joe, you know, everything was already established, and he had to jump in and really do everything that was asked of him, like just, you know. And he did it like really big, like he yeah, he stepped in some big shoes, and then Josh did. It's really amazing. If I wore the green stripe shirt, they would definitely like, it would definitely cut the demographic into this like really little cult.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's but it's so true. I feel the same way regarding Steve. I see him as a Mr. Rogers figure for our generation, for the millennials, you know, that grew up with the show. And I love hearing you share about like some of these stories and the fact, like with the music too, that it's a preschool show, but when writing this music, clearly you approached it of like capturing a feeling, like this joyous feeling, excitement of getting the mail, for example, and all that stuff. So I love
Yeah.
hearing that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, Steve could also, like, when it was like raining or something like that, or
mm,
um, he could share like being reflective and quiet, with the kid. Like he didn't feel like he had to be big and happy all the time, which was such a gift. It was so great.
like very human. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really that's wonderful too. I know you've obviously done so many collaborations. I see like on your website this huge, amazing list of all these people you've worked with: Ray Charles, Patti LaBelle, Tony Braxton, et cetera, et cetera. So amazing. Like this.
So all of those were Blues Clues. That was all like Blues Clues is most of that list of the famous people.
Well,
Um,
wait, really?
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
let's see. Ray
oh,
Charles, Tony
yeah.
Braxton, India Ari, Randy Travis, Patti LaBelle, Macy Gray, Nell Carter. Um, I'm probably forgetting people, but those were all Blues Clues. All those people.
And you know what? I forgot then that Blue's Clues went on to do, I forget now. It was like a something with just blue and it was more musical. Yeah, now I'm realizing music was such an important part of Blue's Clues. And that's an important part, I think, for childhood development too, because it's expression, creativity. Yeah. That stuff is all really, really wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so. I think it was really big for me as a kid.
I know that's, because the whole thing with music too, it's like you're just tapping into that. I don't know what the word is, like the id, like just really just like, let's use what sounds am I going to produce and everything. Yeah, music just brings so much joy in general, obviously. But I'd love to hear too from you, Nick. What do you do like when you have creative block? Like if that ever happens for you, do you just kind of like, I'd love to hear. Yeah.
Uh, what do I do? I think I just get kind of annoying to people around me. Um, I get kind of like Eeyore. Everything is, I get mad at everything and everybody and sad and then something happens that gets me out of it.
Right. It honestly is a cyclical thing for myself too, because I'm a writer and sometimes like, when the old writer's block hits, I tell myself, well, let me just take a break from this then. And more often than not, like as they say, like when you're not consciously trying to figure things out, that's when like the best ideas hit you, like when the inspiration strikes. It is like fascinating kind of how the mind works in that way,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding more and more that anything that I'm excited about having to do with anything can be integrated into whatever you're working on. So, if you're working on like a biography of Winston Churchill, um, and you're really excited by some story about AI that just came out, you can somehow integrate that into your biography of Winston Churchill. Whatever got you excited, if you break it down, will apply to anything.
Yeah, I agree with that because yeah, I draw inspiration from, like you said earlier, from just living life, from everything in life, whether it's music, shows, everything, books. So yeah. Um, so for you, is there like when you perform on stage, is there like a certain performance or anything that really like stood out to you, like, wow, this is like an unforgettable night? I'm sure there's been many.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I've had a few for different reasons. It all depends on there's so many different kinds of things that move you or get your adrenaline going. I mean, I when I was touring with Culture, that's a Jamaican reggae band from the 70s to the 2000s, that band, and I think they're still playing. but now with the son of the main singer, Joseph Hill, it has taken over. But I was playing with them in 1990 to like 92, just for 2 or 3 years off and on. And we would tour in various places. And there were a couple times that I was, I was just playing keyboards, um, but for 20,000 people. And that stood out like that. That'll get your blood going. Or when I was acting and singing in the musical Urinetown. Do you know that?
Oh, wow.
So I was in the fringe production of that before it went to Broadway, and I didn't have time to audition for the Broadway version because I was still writing for Blues Clues. So, um, but um, but that was a great experience. Being part of that and having like packed audiences every single night that were really on fire. Like we were on fire and the audience was on fire, and it was just like a great I don't know, little magical time. Or like a couple of years ago, I played a song. We stayed with our friends in Rhode Island on our way to Massachusetts, and I played a song that I had just written. It was about a year ago, I guess. And the our friend, it's a couple, and the woman was crying because she was moved by it, and that was really like I felt like crying because I was just like, wow, we really connected. Like she really got it, and it was just there are a lot of different kinds of memorable performance things. Yeah. Or like I played with Percy Sledge many years ago, and he was a great guy, really sweet to the band, and just, I don't know, really strong performer and guy. Actually, he was a boxer.
Oh, wow.
But he we got shut down by the police like in the middle of him
Wow.
singing When a Man Loves a Woman because of a noise complaint. I mean, like,
Oh,
that was memorable.
wow.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, yeah, we've had a lot of the time that I got to play with James Taylor and Carly Simon was memorable because I didn't know it was going to happen. I I got a call during the day from my friend who was playing in this band that was from Martha's Vineyard, but they were playing in New York, and he asked if I could play that night at this place in the Village in New York, and I said, yeah, yeah, I think I can, but I can't. I'd be coming from work. I was doing proofreading to like pay rent, and I was like, I'm not going to have any keyboards, and they're like, no, we'll have all the keyboards there. Don't worry about it. Like, okay, great. What kind of music is it? You'll know it. It's just like R&B and blues, and well, it's stuff you know. I'm like, great, okay, let's do it.
Hmm.
I showed up and everything was all set up, and we started playing. I think I don't even think there was a sound check. Started playing, and it was I think it was maybe Ride Sally Ride or Mustang Sally, and I'm noticing that the guitarist who just came up on stage after everybody else and was playing an acoustic guitar in front of me was really good. And I was thinking, wow, his back was to me, but I was thinking, man, this guy plays great guitar. It's like rhythm guitar. It was so good. And then he started singing, and it was like, oh, well, that's James Taylor.
Oh, amazing.
And then Carly Simon came out onto the stage at the same time, and I thought, wow, this is really strange. Like, I didn't think they were together. And they weren't, but it was their daughter Sally's 19th birthday. So that was the occasion, and nobody told me.
Wow.
So that was a great disorienting feeling. Like, wow, now I'm playing with these people. Didn't even know it was going to happen.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. So,
Yeah,
for you too, like what would you say is like your biggest genre of music, like rock and roll, or I guess, I guess it's kind of everything, but
it really is everything.
Mhm.
And the bad part of that, the fact that it is everything, is that it kind of makes it nothing. I hate to say it.
Mm.
But people who play like one kind of music for years and years and years and years and years, they're always going to be better at that kind of music than I am. I'm never going to be a great blank, fill in the blank player, because I have been and am unable to commit to a genre. And I think I play pretty well, and I can play my music better than anybody. And I don't know what that is,
Oh, goodness.
but yeah, I mean, I really love jazz deeply. I love blues. I love R&B. I love rock and roll. I love funk, and pretty much any music that is I don't know, that has passion behind it.
You're right. Just art in general. Yeah. Like you've
Yeah,
put yourself into it, then yeah. That's
I love whatever classical music is, whatever you call that. Um,
Well, I think Beethoven, like, classical piano, that's what I think personally. But yeah,
yeah,
all
I
those.
mean,
Yeah.
when you get really into the weeds, the genres kind of break down. The connection between Beethoven and early jazz get murky when you really get into the weeds. And then especially when you get just a little later and go to Debussy, yeah, things get, you know. And then there's all those great, whatever contemporary classical music is. And I don't know that minimalism is covers it all, but yeah, everybody from John Luther Adams to Bang on a Can. You get a couple of the people from Bang on a Can playing with Paul Simon, and Herbie Hancock playing with Paul Simon. I mean, it's all mixed up. Yeah.
So, I also love hearing like if you have any type of advice that you've learned along the way throughout your career, whether it's life advice, whether it's advice for aspiring musicians, anything you care to share.
Sure. I would say the best thing you can do for yourself is try to figure out who you are, and don't rush it. Don't like preemptively decide who you're not, but just, I mean, that's hopefully I'll not have figured that out even by the time I die. Hopefully I'll be wondering about that stuff on my deathbed. But yeah, it's that gets you I think that gets you farther than anything creatively. Figuring out what's important to you, what you value, will tell you, in music, that might make your music more laid back and give importance to the rests, and or infuse it with rhythmic energy. But whatever is going on, it's because of what you value, and that gets back to knowing who you are. So, or trying to figure it out. So that's my advice. As I think about it now, it's not very helpful.
I no, there's pearls of wisdom in there. It's good. It is. But so if there's any current projects that you're able to share.
Oh yeah. Well, let's see. I'm playing with a bunch of bands right now. I'm really excited about this band, the NYC Ska Orchestra, which is like a 19-20 piece big band that plays ska, which is this Jamaican music that came before reggae. And it plays things in the style of ska. I mean, sometimes it's ska, there's some originals, but anything can be made in ska is really just a kind of a rhythmic. It's like a groove. So when you've got 4 trumpets and 5 saxophones and 4 or 3 trombones and a bass trombone, guitar, piano, drums, percussion, and a couple singers, like, sky's the limit. And I've been arranging and writing for that band and playing with that band, and that is great fun. I can't believe it's surviving. And the leader of that band, Kevin Batchelor, plays trumpet and sings, and he's in the Sun Ra Orchestra. And he also tours with Jason Mraz from time to time, and Sting and Shaggy, and he's on a Keith Richards record. I mean, so we're really close. I love that band. Another band is Knock 'Em Dead, which is a Grateful Dead tribute band.
Oh, cool.
A whole other thing. And that's a lot of fun. And the guys in that band are terrific musicians. And I think we interpret that music with a lot of energy. And then I play in a couple of reggae bands. Roe and the Nomads, this guy Roe, a Californian who has a South Indian background. So he is the leader and the singer, and his voice is kind of trained in. I should ask him if I know he can sing Karnataka. It's a South Indian kind of classical singing. I don't know if he has training in that, but I think he probably must, because his voice is off the hook. He's really great. So that's a great band. Right now I'm writing for my own thing. I'm trying to get my own band off the ground, but before I do that, I want to make sure I have enough music written out for everybody, so that nobody has to kind of hang out with me while I play things over and over again and say, like, it goes like this, and that's like can't do that with real musicians who have to, like, put meals on the table. So that's also in the works.
And are you on social media at all, or just through your website people can contact you?
The website is great. I need to update some things on there, but yeah, that has a lot of like where I'm going to be playing with whom, and that's nickbalaban.com. That's a simple one. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram and that stuff. I'm trying to use it, but I'm like, I have a disability, which is that I'm old.
Oh, no.
And it's really, I appreciate the power of social media, and it's a lot more powerful than I am.
it's both good and bad, like everything, but yeah, it's good for like connection, but then not so great. Obviously, there's toxicity to it as well, but yeah. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
I just find it hard to use. I just, it's like somebody told me the other day, can I repost something on Instagram? And
Hmm.
I said, sure. I went on Instagram. I'm like, how do I do this? I still haven't figured it out. So yeah. Uh, oh well.
It's all good. Nick, it's been such an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I hope it's entertaining.
That's definitely, absolutely. I loved hearing all your stories. So good.
Oh, great.
And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to check out storytellingsaga.com, and as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next episode, I can sum it up with one word: believe. I will be discussing Ted Lasso. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.